In this video, we're going to kick off one last example around state. And this application is going to kind of combine a couple other things that we've already worked on this course, and it's definitely going to be a little bit more complicated than the last two examples we worked on. So let's get to it. Okay, so we're still going to do another example that's kind of focused on colors, but this time it's definitely, like I said, a little bit more complexity. So in this case, we're going to have three different sets of buttons. One set of buttons, the first ones right here, are going to control how much red or not red we're going to show on some view element down here at the very bottom. We'll also have a set of buttons to control how green it is and how blue it is as well. So we're going to have a red, a green, and a blue. We're going to essentially combine all these different values together to form an RGB string to apply to that view element right there. So in this case, as opposed to having a bunch of different squares, just one square, and we're going to change the value of it based upon how many times the user taps on these different buttons. Now right away, you're going to notice that this set of elements right here, like that label and those two buttons, and this one, and these right here, well, they all look very similar with some just very slightly different words on them. Like the first one is red, and the next one's green, and then blue. So this might be another opportunity where we can make a reusable component. And in doing so, we're probably going to have to figure out how we can somehow get reusable components to work with state and props at the same time. So like I said, perhaps this is going to be a little bit more complicated. All right, let's answer these three questions once again, because they're going to be slightly different this time around. So first off, what piece of data is changing in our app? You might think that we're going to have just like a single string, a RGB value. Well, we could do that, but a much easier way to deal with this would be to have three separate different pieces of state. We could have one piece of state called red, and that would be essentially a counter that goes up and down. It would be a single number between 0 and 255, and that would track the amount of red we have. We could then also have a second piece of state, very similar, between 0 and 255, that would track the amount of green, and then a third piece of state that would be blue. What type of data are these? Well, once again, they're going to be numbers. And then finally, what are their starting values going to be? Well, in each case, we could either maybe randomly generate them, or maybe we'd just start them off as 0 or 255 so that the square appears black, but we could figure that out in due time. So, big challenges inside this application. Rather than just one piece of state, we're going to have three different pieces of state. In addition, we're going to have to kind of coordinate how these pieces of state change on these child components as well. Before we take a break, let's go through all this boilerplate setup that we have to go through every time. So inside my screens directory, I'm going to make a new screen. I'm going to call this, how about square screen.js, because we're just showing one color square. Then at the top, I'm going to import React from React. We'll get our view, and how about some text and style sheet. We'll see how many of those we actually need, but it's a good place to get started. I'll then make my square screen. From here, I'm going to return just a piece of text for now that says square screen. I'll then, my style sheet, so I'll do const styles is style sheet.create with an empty object, and we'll do our export default of square screen. Okay, looks like a good place to get started. So let's save this. We'll go back to our app.js file. Here's app.js. As usual, I'm going to import square screen from the source screens directory, and I'll add it into my list of possible routes here. So I'll get square is square screen. And then finally, very last step, let's make sure we open up that home screen. Here's the home screen right here. I'm going to copy one of these buttons again. I'll change the name, go to Square Demo, and we'll change the navigate function as well to Square. All right, let's do a quick test here. So I'll refresh, I'll go to Square Demo, and there we go, very good. All right, so quick pause right here. When we come back in the next video, we'll start working on our square screen. So I'll see you in just a minute.